Hi. So, I have just come back from a trip from LA, and I thought today I would talk a little bit about overcoming obstacles. When I first booked the trip, it was for my daughter's birthday, and I thought, what would be a better way to celebrate her 13th than taking her somewhere that me and her both really wanted to go? So, throughout the month of July, towards the end of June, month of July, I had help, don't get me wrong, I had help. But most of it came from me hustling in my business, me getting everything out the way and coming up with the money to make sure that we get there, have a great time over there, and make sure we get back. And I want to say, once I start booking everything, once I start really getting into travel, I started noticing for some reason that first day is always the most stressful, and it's always a glitch. There's something always going on. So once I booked everything, and it was probably 2 days beforehand, and everything was pretty much good to go, I started really nervous and I started feeling really antsy. So I knew I needed my credit cards to be right, and enough money in the bank accounts to make sure we have food and all that good old jazz. But as like I said, that first day, there's always something. So I think the day before, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna move this around for the deposit, put this there, just shuffling around my funds to make sure that I could get through checking in a hotel and checking in for the car rental, because those two things just for some reason make me so nervous. Those things make me so nervous because you never know what can go wrong. You can get up, whatever. So, all right, so we leave for LA. We get there, get it through the airport. It's busy. LAX is a huge airport, international airport, in one of the biggest cities in the US. Okay, I expected that. We get there, we get to our rental, and it's not like a normal, like, when you get the rental bus to go to the other terminals to get your rental car. This one had like a separate van. And mind you, when I booked it, it was like one of the cheapest options for rentals. So I never heard of this place before. My intuition, someone just said book it with them, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll do that. So I book my rental. We go inside this like minivan that takes you down to the rental, and then me never being in LA before, I know like we all know like what a upscale neighborhood look like, kind of mid scale and like lower scale, not the greatest area to be in. We all know it. We can feel it when you get there. It just has a look to it and it has a feel to it. I would say when I'm going down, I'm like, this place look kind of dingy. And of course, when I pull up, it just looked so. The air when you got out the car, you could just feel like, I don't want to be here. I just did not want to be there. So now I get inside, the place is kind of old, a little dingy. And then when I get up there, when you book it, it doesn't say like we all booked a rental. I hope we've all booked a rental before. It didn't say like you needed to have insurance. That's like an optional. That's optional. But when I get there, they said no, it's mandatory. You have to have it. So I go on their site. I'm like, well, I'll just choose the insurance that they have that they should carry. They didn't have any. I get up to the window and he was like, oh, do you have insurance? I'm like, no. I'm like, I could just buy yours, right? And then he starts writing down on a piece of paper where you can get insurance from. I just looked at a piece of paper like he was handing me, like he blew his nose on it. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know where you sending me. Why don't you have access to insurance? Because every other rental place has access to insurance. Why don't you? So he goes in the back and then he comes back out. He was like, well, since you don't have your insurance, your deposit is going to have to be higher. And I said, no, I don't have that amount of money. And he was like, well, you need to have the insurance for the car. And I'm like, okay, I don't have a problem getting insurance, but does that mean my deposit is to be lower? He goes in the back, starts talking with his manager. He come back and said, okay, we can do some wiggle room with you on the deposit. I'm like, first of all, that's sketch as fuck. I have not yet encountered where you can negotiate a deposit. I'm not saying it never happens, but I've never seen that. And I don't do rental cars that often, but I've never seen that personally. And that really turned me off from the whole situation, because how do you negotiate a deposit at a rental company? I can see maybe a landlord that owns his own house doing what he wants to do on his deposit, but a company has said no. And so, I just ended up walking away. There was a couple next to me. They was from Australia, super nice couple. And, they're just going along with it. And I'm glad that they probably did have the means. And it wasn't that I didn't have the money for the deposit. It's just that I felt like nothing was congruent. If on the website, it does say it's going to be between, what was it, $200 and $1,000 for a deposit. But nowhere did it say that your insurance was mandatory. So that kind of threw me off. But anyway, that's besides the point. It was a personal decision, but just walking in there, I was so ready to drop the car because I knew that if I couldn't get a car, I was going to get around or just going to have to shuffle around my plans, or B, I was going to get a car from somewhere else. That was not my only option. And I didn't let it stress me out. And it kind of surprised me because I think older me, or maybe me from a year or two ago, would have probably been a little scared, frustrated. I was frustrated, don't get me wrong, but not as maybe angrier than what I thought I could have been in that situation. But I didn't let it get to me because I just ultimately knew it was okay. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to make an example in front of my daughter, and especially other people there, because I didn't want to be the angry black woman inside the rental. I know I wasn't the most calmest person in the situation, but I also didn't want to be, oh, there's another angry black woman. I didn't want to be that. So I left it. He was like, oh, do you want to cancel it? I said, yeah. And I walked away. I didn't really argue with him. I was trying to get my point across, but there was no argument or back and forth. There was just simply me going, no, I don't have that. I'm trying to work with him. He's trying to work with me, don't get me wrong, but ultimately something in me knew that this wasn't for me. So we take our Uber to the hotel. We're driving through LA for the first time. It's so exciting. And then after our rest, I remember specifically going, I'm not making any more decisions until I get rest, because I can't make no decisions right now. Traveling across the country, the plane ride wasn't long or anything like that. It's just, that travel trip the first day is always the most exhausting, especially when you're traveling with family, because you need to make sure that they're okay, they have everything that they need, you making sure that you safe, you looking around for a whole bunch of different opportunities that could be a potential threat. You in foreign land, you don't know where you at, you don't know where you're going. It could just be a lot. So that first day I said, I'm not going to do anything else but take my time, and then I'll figure this out tomorrow. So I get there, and next day I'm calm, I'm refreshed, I feel better. All right, my mind is clear. What's next? And Spirit just said, that extra money that you didn't have to spend on a deposit, I went through Turo, get you a car for the next 2 days. Not only will it be cheaper, your gas won't be that much, and you don't have to put up an upfront deposit. The insurance already comes with your booking. If you never book through Turo, they make you pay for the minimum amount of coverage, and you can choose to add extra if you like, and then that was that. Now imagine if I just sat there and tried to fight, or even was like, oh, this is the only option that I have, and get in this car for something I clearly walked in and didn't feel comfortable with. If anything that this short little life of mine has taught me is that, and even my parents, I'm grateful that they told me when to walk away, when to stay and when to walk away, when you just give it up because you're not being treated correctly. So it's okay to walk away from things that you just know is not for you anymore. And through my own experiences, just knowing like, hey, you're going to have to fail at this. Maybe there's something better. And maybe it's not something better. Maybe that's just where you need to hard stop. And that's it. And thought I would give someone out there a little bit of advice on overcoming obstacles in this life. So let me go through my little list. First, you need to notice when the obstacle arises that you have options. You could put it down, you could walk away, you can come back to it another day, you could completely leave it. Avoid getting stuck in that this has to go this way. This is the only option that I have. This is the only way it can go. If it doesn't go this way, I'm not going to be happy. Everything's going to be ruined. Because you're really starting to limit yourself from the possibilities that life or your higher power has to offer you. It doesn't serve anyone, including yourself and the people around you, if you get caught up in how you think a thing's supposed to be. You never know. What if you saving someone's life by not going with that option? What if you saving your life by not going with that option, or just taking a step back, making sure you don't take 2 steps back when you should only take 1 step forward? You could have just saved yourself from a big ass bus smacking you and making you into a very human pancake on the side of the road somewhere. So you really just never know what you're saving yourself from. And that's when you need to become flexible and stop trying to fight against the obstacle. The ego has a good way of trying to think that you can push your way past something that's truly out of your control. Well, really is just afraid that ultimately what the ego is afraid of, that it will die. Your ego is just always constantly afraid of death. It is always trying to protect you. And I think society, and I'm not going to say Western society, or maybe it is a Western type of thinking, where we think that if we don't have what's been fed to us over and over again, or these plans or expectations, no one's really teaching us how to let things go and let things be for just a moment. And so our ego thinks that trivial things like a rental car in this instance is something that is pivotal to our existence and our survival, when it's really not. You're going to be just fine. And sometimes you just got to put your hands up and just ask whatever higher power that's guiding you in this life. You can ask for help, and you can ask for more options that are available to you. And like I said, we talked about walking away. Sometimes you just need to walk away. Sometimes just standing there, trying to fight it, trying to look at it, trying to figure it out. Sometimes you can't figure it out right then and there. You may be tired, you may be stressed. Sometimes we don't have all the information available to us. And so we can't make a decision. So some part of you, some part of life is trying to protect you from a decision that you could make that could potentially throw you off your path, delay something for you. You just never know. So you have to have ultimate trust in yourself first and foremost. For a more logical person, trust in yourself. Because I don't know no logical person that would say, well, no, how could you trust in yourself? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know no person that's really stuck in a logical thinking that would say no to that. And if you're not, and if you're a little bit more flexible with spirituality, religious thinking, whatever, Christian, Buddhist, whatever, you understand that there's something else God in this, and you have to trust in that as well. And also, I noticed that lately it's becoming more and more, I feel like I'm developing more and more of a habit of letting go, because recently I had suffered from like really bad muscle spasms. I'd never felt that in my life. Like when I would walk, my back would hurt. I would move my neck, spasm. I would turn my head, spasm. I was crying while walking. I couldn't get into a car, couldn't step, couldn't do anything. I'm crying in the doctor's office because that's just how much pain I was in. And a little research says that when you carry this stress, some people carry this stress in their neck. Me, I happen to carry my stress in my neck, my back, and my hips, and my shoulders. And from a spiritual perspective, if you hold stress in your back, that means you feel like you have no support. Once you start, once I started to realize like I'm making myself sick by always constantly worrying and constantly feeling unsupported. Let me just let go. And this is a habit of letting go that you need to learn how to cultivate. And I'm starting to see that myself. I just, some things are harder than others. I'm not saying I'm completely mastered it or I'm the master of this, but some things are harder than others. Some things are easier to let go than others. So I just kind of refuse to keep making myself sick. Really striving to give myself better thoughts, better better everything all around, better food habits, better exercise, all of that all the way around, because I'm starting to value myself more, starting to see the beauty in what I have to offer life and what life has to offer me. And another thing that really helped me with dealing with obstacles is observing how nature deals with chaos. I would see a lot of broken down trees. You know how they just randomly seem to just break down the middle because they're old or maybe lightning struck it. I started seeing how nature deals with chaos and how we all kind of deal with the chaos of nature. We don't see a whole bunch of animals standing around the tree that broke, trying to figure out how to fix the broken tree. In one way or another, we all acknowledge that it's just a part of life, that the tree will ultimately be okay. We know that the tree will eventually feed back to nature. We don't get caught up in the minutia of, oh my god, this poor tree, what are we going to do? We don't let those thoughts run us because we just know intuitively and instinctively that nature has to do its own thing. So what if we applied that to life? What if we applied that to our everyday surroundings and just know like, hey, this may seem stressful to me now, but really I'll look back at it and be like, you'll laugh and you'll just know ultimately you'll be okay. But I thought that might share my thoughts on how the LA trip really kind of, number one, helped me see, this LA trip really helped me see just how far I've come and where I'm going to. Help me put a lot of things in perspective. Help me see the nature of my life and where I am right now. Help me step away from the daily, mundane reality of life here where I live. But it let me see like, wow, I'm really becoming better at this obstacles thing. Better than I thought, honestly. Because I don't think past me would have held up. I maybe would start crying, uh maybe started panicking a little when I didn't get that car, but everything worked out as it should. So do all the things, like and subscribe and share if this brought value to you, and I will see you in the next one.